Hi guys, I'm Mark Kenigsberg and it's the 26th of March and as always we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, but more specifically about coronavirus. Um, to be clear, I'm not an economist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a trained professional in any sort of way, but I do think that there's a very crazy world situation that's going on at the moment, and the way we choose to respond to it is going to define a lot about us as individuals, as well as the way the global, economy and culture moves forward as a result. When faced with adversity, a lot of character forming is done. And without getting too philosophical, I want to focus a little bit on the idea of physical activity. Everyone's country is a little bit different in terms of responses to the coronavirus, and wherever you are, I hope you're safe and taking precautions, and primarily just taking care of you and your family. I'm in Israel. We have a virtual lockdown situation. Activity is restricted to 100 meters from our house or essential services defined as pharmacies or basic groceries. Everything else is shut down, including deliveries. But I want to talk for a moment about, what does day-to-day life look like in terms of dealing with this? It's great that we have these restrictions, the work questions, Bitcoin, all of this aside. Like, how do we get through 12 hours dealing day to day when we're locked in a small apartment, or we're subject to cabin fever? So I don't have all the answers. All I have is some experience dealing with small children and a little bit of personal experience, what it feels like to not be going out. And based on that, I want to make two recommendations. And the recommendations are very, very simple. One is get some fresh air. If you have a balcony, go on the balcony, spend some time there, walk around, sit, make yourself a cup of tea, make yourself a cup of coffee, whatever it is, be on your phone, watch a movie. Like, it doesn't matter. The point is that air outside is a valuable, valuable thing. And it feels different to air inside, and it can dramatically reduce the effects of cabin fever just being exposed to it a couple of hours a day. So wherever possible, spend some time outside. But secondly is the idea of physical activity. Physical activity is definitely a challenge if you're in an area that is quarantined or you're experiencing physical lockdown. Like, for example, we have 100-meter restrictions on travel. I know other people that are actually in corona quarantine, so you can't go out. But there are two very, very important effects of physical activity. The one is the health effect, whereby, kind of recommendations are 2 to 3 times a week, 30 to 45 minutes activity that is of a cardiovascular nature, that gets the heartbeat going. This may or may not be possible in the current situation, but there's definitely a health benefit attributed to this. Reduction in free radicals, antioxidants, this kind of thing. Very, very important. And the second, which may be more important short term, is the release of endorphins. Exercise as an activity releases endorphins. Endorphins are by nature a pleasure related enzyme which makes you feel good in the short term and creates motivation for ongoing physical activity. So the release of endorphins itself is essentially a means to an end, because it creates the will to want to release more endorphins, which is a result of physical activity, which drives health benefits and good well-being for the body. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you what an ideal regimen should be for training. I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing in your own homes. What I am going to tell you is that some level of physical activity, even if you're restricted to the bounds of an apartment, is incredibly, incredibly beneficial from a health and a spirit and motivational perspective. one of the most difficult aspects of this corona lockdown to deal with, which is not being addressed, is, the spirit. How do I face the fact that I have to stay inside and with children often and deal with homework and work and many other challenges on top of the normal, whilst being limited in terms of my ability to function or go out. Spiritual victories, incredibly, incredibly important, and many of them can come in a time like this from basic physical activity. So pick 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, do some push-ups, do some squats, maybe go for a walk in a short area if you are, like I'm in a cul-de-sac that is, very, very reasonable. Do something that gets your heartbeat going a little bit. Do something that feels like physical activity. Do something that you can hopefully build on in the coming weeks as it increases. Do something that requires a level of commitment, and you will feel better for it, and you will actually be creating a tangible health benefit as a result. But you want to aim to release those endorphins, at least for a few minutes at a time. That is going to come from an increased heart rate. That is going to come from some level of sustained physical activity. Again, 10 to 15 minutes, something that is sustainable, that is a good precedent, that can be built upon, is the key. Do some basic sit-ups, do some crunches, do some basic weights if you have. Do some running on the spot. Do some planking. Planking is incredibly healthy exercise. There are a lot of YouTube videos on basic, aerobic exercise that can be done in a few minutes at a time. Do not aim for something that is unrealistic or that is, well beyond the scope of what you're able to do physically. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes a day. Do this. Get comfortable with it. Increase it slowly. The coronavirus lockdown and pandemic story is very, very, very early on. A lot of things are going to happen before this is over. Begin with healthy habits now, and you will find yourself reaping the rewards incredibly towards the end of it. One of which is definitely going to be a physical and a health reward. So my 2 cents as a non-professional and someone who has absolutely no idea what they're talking about other than own personal experience, take 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. Do some dedicated health regime and stick to it. You will feel good about it psychologically. You will feel good about it physically. It will release endorphins, and it will breed a habit of increase and health that will only serve you well through the coming weeks. In the meantime, read about Bitcoin, learn about Bitcoin, follow me on Twitter, on YouTube if you aren't, and I look forward to speaking to you soon in safer times through Corona and Bitcoin. I'm Mark Hennigsberg. Be well.